Welcome, Kris. Great to have you here. So, all-inclusive diet, amazing title. Can you tell us about the book? What's it about? Why'd you write it?
Okay, so what it's about is, first of all, getting into balance and keeping the weight off. So not just taking it off, because let's face it, that's what people do. They focus on taking it off. But what I've realized is that how you take it off is actually how you keep it off. There really isn't any difference. And that was really profound to me. And that's what sort of got me to delve even deeper and figure out that it's not just all about the food and the exercise. If you want to keep the weight off, there's a bigger picture. In fact, there's 5 facets. Those facets actually I have an acronym for, and it's called FEARS. And it stands for food, exercise, activity, relaxing, and sleeping. And these are sort of the 5 facets that all intersect and sort of bump into each other. So they all have to be balanced. They all have to be focused on, because if they get out of alignment, then that's when we put the weight back on. And that's why it's such a repetitive cycle that we keep seeing.
So, right. So a lot of people will just, like, let's say, focus on drinking a couple shakes and having a healthy meal at night. And they're going to do that for 3 months and try and lose weight, but they're not really balancing all those other things. So what's the cycle that creates if you just kind of go on a diet, not an all-inclusive diet, but a diet? What's the difference between that?
Yeah. So in regards to the food, correct? Yeah. So with the food, when we become really restrictive and rigid with our eating, we're basically setting ourselves up for failure, because realistically, there's no way we can sustain that kind of lifestyle. In fact, who would want to? Honestly, right? You just came back from Italy.
I ate all the food in Italy.
And, with my approach, there's room for all of that within reason, within balance. But I understand that that's part of living. And we need to live fully. And we need to live fully within the food facet as well. Because otherwise, we're just going to do another rigid, restrictive type of short-term diet that just keeps putting the pounds back on.
So you're a pretty buff dude. And
How do you know?
I can see. We all can see. It's looking good. And I know that you have a background in fitness. So I think a lot of people who might be seeing you now might be thinking, like, this guy's going to want me to work out a lot. So how does exercise come into it? And, do people have to look like you in order for this approach to work for them?
And this was actually a hard part of writing the book. I'm also an owner of a personal training studio from Toronto. And it was difficult to actually tell the truth, in the sense that there's more to it than just food and exercise. Again, coming from I'm a national bodybuilding champ, and I've also got this personal training studio. And here I am telling people that, food and exercise isn't the answer, that there's more to it. So that was really, really challenging for me. And this, again, all came about because I went through my own struggles. I basically had addiction problems, and those addiction problems led to another problem. I was overweight. And, through that struggle, which was actually a few years of figuring it out and getting back into balance, that's when I realized that this is the only way that it's possible. This is the only way that you can keep the weight off.
Because this wasn't a lack of information. Like, you clearly knew what you needed to eat and how you needed to exercise.
Right.
So why weren't you doing it?
Right. So one of those facets, as I mentioned, is the emotional facet. And that is the most powerful one. That's the one that's going to bump into the other facets the most. So when it comes to, understanding your emotions, being in touch with them, expressing your feelings, all of these things is what I discuss in the book. And let's face it, the last time that you failed with any type of diet program, it wasn't the food. If it was an exercise program, it wasn't the exercise. It was probably something that happened in your life that brought stress into your life, and your inability to deal with it, because we're humans, caused us to obviously get off of that, rigid, restrictive program that we were following, and we put the weight back on.
Yep. So great. Well, so many questions for you. One of them is the is the story that dieting slows your metabolism. Is that a myth?
Yeah, so there's a lot of sort of theories about that. The body, it's got one purpose, and that's to survive. Okay, so it will make adjustments along the way. And if you threaten its survival, okay, it will remember that. Okay, and it won't be so willing and giving the next time that you actually start a diet. So there's enough evidence to show now that a repetitive dieting does negatively affect your metabolic rate.
I've been testing that, if anyone would like to check in with me.
Yes, well, you have an amazing weight loss story, and I really think that the stars were connected when you and I met.
Oh,
Because
for sure.
this relationship is just unbelievable. But yeah, that's the answer to that question, that repetitive dieting definitely negatively affects your metabolic rate.
And so, a couple more questions here. When we do not enjoy what we eat, we fail at dieting. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, and that's again part of understanding the food facet, that it's got to be a good fit for you. It's got to be something that, well, I call it today, tomorrow. So, you know, if you're on, I don't know, a cabbage soup diet, if you really love cabbage and you can see yourself eating cabbage tomorrow, like forever, then go on the cabbage soup diet. No problems. But if the answer is no, that you're doing this for a short-term fix, then you already know what it's going to be at the end. It's going to be sabotage, and it's going to be putting the weight back on again. Because what you do today, ask yourself, can you do that tomorrow? And that goes with every sort of practice, right, or diet that you bring into your lifestyle.
I love that. Wow. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit for you, Kris, about why you wanted to write this book and why is sharing this message important to you?
Yeah, again, so my own struggles with addiction and understanding just how important balance is, because let's face it, you know, when I was in my 30s, balance really was something that I was aware of, but I really didn't take seriously. But now it's critical. I always need to be in balance, because the consequences for someone like me with my problem are quite severe. So I have to always try to maintain a certain state of equilibrium or balance. So knowing that that balance is so important, I needed to share that. And that's the other part of this book that was really difficult for me, because I had to share my own personal story, because without that personal story, I don't think this book would have the weight that it really does. Excuse the pun. But yeah, so it really took a lot of courage for me to stand on this red carpet and tell you that in that book is my own personal struggle, but it's also going to be my personal legacy, because what is in that book is the truth. It's for the people that really want to keep the weight off.
So, and I have so many things to say to you right now, but I'm just struck. I have to share this that's happening for me standing right here. Is Kris was also here back in May. And one of the things we do at 3 Days to Done, actually on the first day, is we make a bunch of videos from the perspective of having written your book. And I'm going to share something personal. You don't get a vote, but this was a really hard experience for Kris. Like, it was not. But what I want people to stand in the shoes that you're in right now and kind of own that position as an author. And I remember like us sort of like trying to craft the message and figure out what you were going to say. And you'd come check it with me. Like, is this what I want to say? And just to see the transformation of you standing next to me in a place that we stood just 2 months ago, I feel like I'm with a totally different human.
Yeah. And I think that's because of the amount of full expression that goes into becoming an author and you know, borning a book into the universe. It changes you. It really does. Self-confidence, self-esteem, everything is entirely different. And I'll tell you, it was a difficult process, even to the last 3 days, to understand that I have to let go of this book. It's going out into the universe. I struggled with that. And it's just an incredible process now that I've broken through the other side and got through all of those, the self-doubt and the anxieties of really putting myself out there in print, especially because there's my own personal struggle, you know, noted in there.
But there are other questions too, like you are not a nutritionist. Obviously you work with nutritionists, you have a lot of knowledge about nutrition, but you're not a doctor. You're not, you didn't run statistical studies to test all these theories. And there were so many questions about that. And I think as people are watching, whatever their thoughts are, you know, whether you're writing a book or starting a business or whatever, there's always all these questions that we can dwell on about, like, am I good enough? Like, ultimately that's what we're all asking ourselves. And just standing in front of you now with this book done and having read it and knowing how much clearer your message got, you know, just in the 2 months, is that confidence. You didn't learn more. You didn't get a nutrition degree in the last 2 months. You didn't become a doctor in the last 2 months. You didn't, you know, do a controlled study of 100 people losing weight. But the number of people that you'll help because of that shift in your perspective about what you have to offer. You know, people think that it's about the book, and the book, you know, we need it. It has great information, but your ability to help people really shifts when you step into the fact that, like, wait, I may have a thing here.
Yeah. And there was lots of self-doubt prior to that. In fact, I remember, you know, before dealing with my own personal problems, that I would look at somebody, and if they had a weight problem, I'd look at them as a nutritionist or a personal trainer, and really not understand that, you know, that extra weight that they had is really extra matter. It's things that matter to these people that they haven't dealt with. It's emotional baggage. And because of that, you know, they've got this weight problem. And that's, you know, in some cases, that's how I look at it now. And that's where my own personal struggle allows me to help other people that perhaps are struggling in the same way.
And has that changed from who you work with? Like, do you mostly just work with people as a personal trainer at the gym, or has this shifted how you work with people?
Yeah, it entirely has. You know, I still own the club, and that's great for the activity facet out of the 5 facets. But no, I like to take more of a holistic approach. So I do use practitioners in my program, nutritionists and psychosomatic practitioners, etc. But I really look at the big picture. I look at the whole person, because there's more than just food and exercise.
Wow, that from the gym rat, isn't that what we're supposed to call you? There are so many comments here. Tanya wants to know your definition of balance. You can find that out in the book, Tanya. Mario wants to know about the Freedom 13 program. I don't know if that's in the book.
Yeah, so that's my program. That's my coaching program, and I coach people across North America. We do that virtually, and if you're in my backyard in Toronto, then we do it in person. But typically, it's virtually, so it's over the computer, and we do small groups, and it's a 13-week program, and the objective of the 13 weeks is to keep the weight off, not just take the weight off.
That's awesome. Pam says that your comeback is inspiring. I agree. Kris is an amazing author. Go ahead and pick up a copy of All Inclusive Diet. You can see the link right there on the screen. And we're going to keep talking weight loss for a minute. Kris, thank you so much. Congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
Lost story going.